I now call the Planning Committee to order. Tonight's meeting is being held with members of the Planning Committee, members of the Executive Management Team and Deputy City Clerk in the Council chambers. Members of the Senior Management Team and other staff are available to answer questions in person and via video conference. The Council chambers remain closed to the public until further notice. The first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. For the consent items, I will read out the title associated with the recommended motions printed on the agenda. Members of the Planning Committee may ask that an item be held so that it can be discussed further. If an item is not held, the motion is deemed to be approved on consent. No further discussion of the item will take place at Planning Committee, and the item will go forward to the May 2nd City Council meeting for approval. The first staff report is DEV 00322, Official Plan Amendment and Zoning Bylaw Amendment for 521 Huronia Road. It's approved on consent. The next one is DEV 007-22 zoning bylaw amendment application for 189 Somerset Drive, Ward 6. Is anybody holding it? That is approved on consent. And finally, DEV 00822 delegation of holding approval authority for the removal of a holding symbol under section 39.2 of the Planning Act. Anybody want that item held? Seeing none, all the items have gone on consent. We have two public meetings this evening. Although registration to speak prior to the meeting was encouraged, if you have not yet registered and wish to speak, please email cityclerks@barrie.ca. City clerks, all one word, at barrie.ca, or call 705-797-5353, and staff will send you the information required to participate. Tonight's applications are submitted by the developers and deemed complete under the Planning Act to proceed with the public meetings. The first public meeting is to review an application submitted by MHBC Planning Limited on behalf of Sandy Creek Estates for the zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan for subdivision for lands legally described as part lots 19, concession 11, parts 1 and 2, 51R-35948, part 1, 51R-11231, formerly town of Innisfil, and known municipally as 969, 979, and 989 Mapleview Drive East. The site is approximately 20 hectares in size and located on the south side of Mapleview Drive East and west of the extension of Terry Fox Drive. The property is located in the Hewitt's secondary planning area. The second public meeting is to review an application submitted by the Goodread Planning Group on behalf of the Mapleview Friday Corporation for a zoning bylaw amendment for lands legally described as part of Lot 19, Concession 11, formerly Township of Innisfil, known municipally as 947 Mapleview Drive East. The subject property is located in the Hewitt's planning area as well. Members of the Planning Committee will be listening to the presentation and comments received during the public meetings, but will not be making comments or debating the item tonight. Members of the Planning Committee will have an opportunity to provide comments when the staff report is considered by Planning Committee at a later date. As the purpose of the public meeting is to provide the public an opportunity to give comments on the subject application, the ward councillor will have an opportunity to ask questions of staff and questions of clarification. This will allow them to ask questions on behalf of residents unable to attend the meeting. Other committee members, including myself, can ask questions of staff after the meeting. Questions will be noted by staff and the applicant. However, will not be responded to at this meeting and will be addressed in the staff report presented at a later date. Michelle Banfield, Director of Development Services, would you please confirm that notification was conducted in accordance with the Planning Act for the public meetings?
Yes, Deputy Mayor Ward, it was.
Thank you. The first public meeting, I will now call on a representative from MHBC Planning to provide the presentation concerning the application submitted by MHBC Planning on behalf of Sandy Creek Estates, Inc. for a zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan subdivision for 969, 979, 989, and 979 and 989 Mapleview Drive East. Who do we have?
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm a neophyte when it comes to computers, so I hopefully you can hear me and you can see me.
We can.
Fantastic. My name is Chris Menzies, and I'm here on behalf of Crystal Homes, as you said, to identify some details regarding a rezoning, a plan of subdivision and a plan of condominium at 969, 979, and 989 Mapleview Drive East. So if possible, if I could share my screen, I have a presentation for you.
Yes, go ahead.
So I'm going to try and intelligently do that too. So hopefully you can see my screen.
We can.
Fantastic. All's working well. And I am cognizant, Mr. Chairman, about the time that I have. So once again, as you have identified, the site is located on the south side of Mapleview Drive in the Hewitt's secondary plan area. And, oh, there we go. So the site itself is about 20 hectares in size, but the portion of the site that's subject to this public meeting is about 2.66 hectares in size. And the reason for that is the parcel in red is part of phase 1 of the Hewitt secondary plan. The parcel below is part of a future phase, so it'll be subject to a future application under the Planning Act. To set some context, the site is located on the south side of Mapleview Drive. There is an approved draft plan to the north, which shows commercial on this corner, a 4-story residential building on this corner, some residential behind. Council, about 4 to 6 weeks ago, had a public meeting with respect to this parcel of land located here, and I'll explain why that's important in a moment. And the second public meeting you have tonight, to set some context, is located on this piece of land. To the east of us is a future residential parcel, which similarly is subject to a future application under the Planning Act. One of the reasons why I wanted to describe this piece of land is the southern portion of the parcel that is subject to the public meeting tonight hosts Sandy Cove Creek. And you saw on this application that the creek is going to be realigned and has been approved to be on the mutual property boundary located here. I'll explain in a moment why that's important. Okay, after you learn how to use my own computer, apparently. So from a planning policy context, the site has 3 land use designations. It has the environmental designation, which recognizes the creek area. It is partially in a neighborhood node, which is in purple, and partially in the residentially designated area. Council may recall that the node policies in the Hewitt secondary plan are a bit of a hierarchy. So they have higher order node residential commercial policies reserved for the Yonge Street corridor. And this is part of a neighborhood corridor. And the neighborhood node, in effect, has policies related to the nodes being residential, medium and high density residential in character. But there are commercial uses from a neighborhood perspective which are permitted. The other thing I wanted to point out on this diagram is these red dots at the time of the secondary plan were representative of where stormwater management pond should go. Because of the realignment of this creek on this parcel, the sub-watershed impact study that Council commissioned actually proposed to move this storm pond onto the subject lands and divide it in half. So a storm pond located here and a storm pond located here, which would have a bit of a regional function. So it would collect stormwater from this area of the Hewitt secondary plan area. One of the reasons, as you know, we're before you tonight is that we've gone through a conformity process with staff and are deemed to conform to the policies of the plan. Through that conformity process, we approached the city and said, rather than having 2 storm ponds that the city has to operate and manage, we'd like to conjoin the storm ponds into one, and we're able to demonstrate how that could happen. So we're going to have 1 regional storm pond on this portion of the site. So from a higher order planning perspective, obviously we have looked at the provincial policy statement and are consistent with that. We've also looked at a place to grow and the Lake Simcoe protection plan. And I will be providing details of the proposal, but it's my professional planning opinion that we conform or are consistent to the plans and policies as required. The site provides for mixed use development, a compact built form, a range and mix of housing types, exceeds the densities in the policy framework. It uses planned infrastructure, provides for a regional, that's my term, storm pond, and protects the required natural heritage features. We've done an extensive list of reports and plans as part of this complete application. And what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about the concept plan in detail in a moment. And it was this concept plan that formed the basis for the draft plan. So we have used an incredible amount of really ugly colors to show you that there's basically this is a block plan. So the block plan provides for 2 mixed use blocks, stormwater management block, 2 environmentally protected blocks, and a street townhouse block with a temporary cul-de-sac. And I'll talk about some of the unit counts in a moment. So this is the concept plan, and this is a bit of a layered approach to explain to council, explain to committee and members of the public as to how the draft plan or block plan was formed. So we are required to expand Mapleview Drive. The secondary plan requires us to extend Terry Fox through the site, and it also provides an opportunity for a residential road to connect to the future development to the east. We're doing condominium roads internal to the site. We are doing and keeping in situ the environmentally protected creek bed area, and this is the stormwater management pond. So this representation of the landscaping is actually a little bit more formed than you would normally see at this process, because the landscaping for this area is being done separately with the Conservation Authority and with the city, and it's somewhat of, although it's on our land, somewhat of a separate process. And what we try to do from a landscape perspective is mirror what the storm pond will look like. The mixed-use buildings constitute 30 buildings all along the frontage of Mapleview Drive. Each of these units has a commercial unit in the front and 2 apartment units in it. One of those apartment units is approximately 650 square feet in size with garage parking. So based on the built form and the size, that unit has the opportunity to provide for either an attainable or an affordable price point. There is a second unit which is a little bit larger in size and is 2 stories. One of the unique things about this property is that there is a dramatic grade change from Mapleview Drive down to the creek at several meters. So we had to pick up that grade on the property, and we've been able to do that through this portion of the site. So these buildings are 3 stories along Mapleview and 4 stories at the back. And each of the residential units in these buildings have quite a generous balcony along the whole, almost the whole back portion of the site. We also have 32 back-to-back townhouses. We have 12 rear lane townhouses. We have 29 street townhouses. So there's approximately 133 units on this property. And like I said, it's not approximately 30 commercial units. Part of what we looked at from a commercial unit perspective is to look at what the job density would be on this site. So our commercial market expert identified that approximately 45 jobs would be generated by the commercial units on the property. And that's a job density that is higher than a traditional type of commercial development with the same gross floor area. So from a zoning perspective, we're looking for 2 mixed use zones, an R5 zone, and environmental protection zone to identify the creek bed. We're looking for some special provisions in the mixed use zone. That's to do a couple of things. One, it's to recognize that the storm pond can be located on that zone. And we're fixing what I'm going to call are some unique attributes respect to this site. So as an example, we're allowed to have a 0 lot line setback along Mapleview Drive, but we have to have a bigger setback along the daylighting triangle. So we're asking for the same opportunity for setback. We actually are providing more than 0 along Mapleview Drive. It's a little bit more than 1.8 meters. Similarly, the zoning exception is to look at which of these roads constitutes the front road for the purposes of zoning. We're looking at consolidating some of our bicycle parking together, although we do meet the standard. And we're looking for things like a little bit of setback from one of the balconies to the streets. So there are some site-specific provisions here that we're looking for, and a good deal of them, in my opinion, are to actually bring into closer conformity some of the requirements in the official plan. So this is a rendering of what the commercial units would look along Mapleview Drive. So this is one of the bank of units. So you would have commercial units in the front. These are 2 stories in size, but we are asking for relief of some of the commercial building height because of the back of the unit. Part of the residential unit is on top of the commercial unit. And these units do a couple of things. One, in my opinion, they animate the street. 2, it provides for a compact urban form. And these units will be in various buildings all along Mapleview Drive to approximately 280 some odd meters of commercial and mixed use building. And 3, it allows residents in the area to potentially have some more modest or attainable commercial units, which otherwise wouldn't be seen. So in conclusion, Mr. Chairman, pardon me, I'm of the opinion that this application represents good planning for a couple of reasons. 1, it provides for transit supportive densities. 2, it provides for 30 businesses in this neighborhood. 3, it provides for access to green space. It provides for an efficient use of land. It provides a string of urban frontages along what is effectively the eastern part of Mapleview Drive and the eastern part of the city. And one of the things that council and committee may recall is during your municipal comprehensive review, your marketing consultant suggested that the city in some cases should look at opportunities for unique approaches to commercial in your nodes and corridors, and that not every approach fits every location in the city. These types of commercial units was a direct response to that dialogue that your consultant provided you with. It provides for this unique and flexible approach for a more modest commercial sized unit for people in the area to potentially buy or rent on a more equitable, what may be a more equitable price point. And it provides a diversity of supply than what you may see in other commercial developments around the city. And those, Mr. Chairman, are my comments, and I would be happy to answer any questions. And we also have with us some of our technical experts if committee would like to hear from them.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Menzies. I will now call upon Michelle Banfield, Director of Development Services, to provide an update on the status of the application.
Thank you for the introduction, Deputy Mayor Ward. So I am going to provide an update as we are looking at the planning, primary planning and land use matters still being considered by staff at this time. So the application is under the technical review, not only by planning staff, but other city departments, as well as our external agency partners, such as the Conservation Authority. An analysis of the application will be provided later when we bring the full staff report back to Planning Committee. So the primary planning and land use matters that we're looking at this point is compatibility and integration into the surrounding approved developments, including but not limited to that future road network, site servicing, grading, stormwater management, all of those studies as it relates to any of the master studies that were prepared for Hewitt secondary plan. The design of the mixed use blocks to ensure that the neighborhood services and the employment opportunities really can contribute to the success of the neighborhood mixed use zone, in particular that node, and the review of any environmental impacts on the natural heritage system and any impacts that are going to be relevant with respect to the interface between Mapleview Drive there. So the zoning bylaw amendment would be anticipated to come back to Planning Committee either in the later part of 2022 or the early part of 2023. Draft plan of subdivision, that process is delegated to staff, so it is being reviewed concurrently. So this is all that I have for you this evening. I'm always happy to answer questions of clarification. All the submission materials, key dates, everything associated with this application is available for viewing online on the city's proposed development webpage. This is under Ward 10. The file manager is Celeste Kitsemetry, so you could reach out to her directly. As always, all of the technical comments, everything we hear will be responded to in the planning staff report when it does come back to Planning Committee, as I said, including anything we hear this evening from members of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Banfield. Can I ask staff, is anybody registered in the public to speak at this meeting?
Deputy Mayor Ward, no, there are currently no speakers registered.
And is there anybody online? I'm going to read out the phone number one more time, 705-797-5353. But nobody has called either. Nobody's registered tonight. Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next public meeting then.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. I will now call upon a representative from the Goodread Planning Group to provide a presentation concerning an application for a zoning bylaw amendment submitted by the Goodread Planning Group on behalf of Mapleview Friday Corporation for 947 Mapleview Drive East. If members of the public have not yet registered and wish to speak, please email cityclerks@barrie.ca or call 705-797-5353 and staff will send you the information required to participate. Okay, so if somebody online from Goodread Planning.
Yes, you do. Brian Goodread here. I'm going to try to, can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can't see you, but we can hear you. Oops. Now we
Yeah.
can.
Okay, perfect. I'm just going to start by trying to share my screen, if that's okay. 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 I think I have that now. Sorry about the delay. Now you can hear me, correct?
We can hear you and we can see the screen. Yes.
Oh, perfect. Acting Mayor Ward, members of Planning Committee, city staff and residents. My name is Brian Goodread and I'm consulting planning with the Goodread Planning Group. My firm represents Mapleview Friday Corporation, the applicant seeking a rezoning to permit a 6-story mixed-use apartment condo on the subject site on Mapleview Drive East. I would note that the site was previously the subject of a conformity review application and a design charrette over the last year and a bit. The project team on this includes architects, planners, civil engineers, landscape architects, environmental scientists, shadow impact consultants, and geotechnical engineers who have provided technical reports and plans in connection with the project. Now, I believe our client and several other members of the project team are in attendance at the public meeting if needed. As indicated on the block plan context plan, the site is located on the south side of Mapleview Drive to the east of Prince William's Way. The site fronts on Mapleview Drive East, and a widening is to be taken along Mapleview Drive by the city. That's a 9-meter widening. And a piece of land is to be added to the subject site from a subdivision to the east to create a larger parcel for development. The subject site is located in the Hewitt secondary plan area, and the land use category on the subject property is residential designation. Subject site is proposed for a mixed use condo development that is comprised of commercial space and apartment units. The development proposed on the surrounding lands as indicated on this plan includes to the north a plan of subdivision, and it's indicated by an arrow, by 970 Mapleview Inc., which is located on the north side of Mapleview Drive East opposite the subject property. And that would be right in here. To the west is a plan of subdivision being advanced for 883 Mapleview Drive East by 109. 109 1369 Ontario Inc. And to the south and east, which would be in this area here, is a plan of subdivision being advanced by 953 at 953 Mapleview Drive East by Mapleview South Innisfil Limited. And a small parcel of land is to be acquired from this subdivision for the purposes of establishing an access route to the development site. The proposal is to establish a mixed-use development with commercial space on the ground floor and 96 apartment units on the 9537 square meter parcel of land. The parcel includes 18 meters by 29.6 meter block, or 532 square meters, in the Mapleview South Innisfil Limited subdivision, which is to become part of the subject site. And this acquisition is to be completed as part of the Mapleview South Innisfil subdivision registration. The site plan proposes a development site which was recently updated subsequent to the application being made. So the total land area is now 9537 square meters. There's a lot frontage on Mapleview Drive East of approximately 160.7 meters, and the lot depth is approximately 55 meters. Now, I would just note for clarification that this area here, the rectangular piece that I'm highlighting here, represents the 532 square meters of land being acquired from Mapleview South for the purpose of enhancing the development site. The land use is proposed to the west and east sides of the subject site by the other developers are standard townhouses, and that would be in this area here and in this area here. And to the south are medium density apartment units, and that would be in this area down here. The building height for the development transitions from a 6-story apartment to 2-story loft units on the west and north faces of the apartment building, and to a 1-story building for commercial units in order to contribute to height compatibility with the townhouses to the east and west, and provide low profile building units that step down from the 6 stories along the Mapleview Drive frontage. The site plan also provides connections to a 3-meter multimodal pathway that is proposed by the city within Mapleview Drive East right-of-way for enhanced pedestrian and cycling movements along Mapleview Drive East. There's also connections to be provided from the pathway to sidewalks within the intersecting internal streets within the plans of subdivision that are proposed to the east and west. The proposed development includes 292 square meter single-story commercial space, along with the 96 residential units. The apartment units are comprised of 15 2-bedroom, 2-story loft apartment units and 81 units in the 6-story apartment structure, with 26 of those units being 2-bedroom units and 55 being 1-bedroom units. I would note as well, of this total, 16 of the units are to be proposed to be barrier-free. And the commercial space within the building may be accessed directly from the front of the building or the parking lot, as well as indirectly by interior corridor between the residential and commercial spaces. And I note as well that there's a garbage and moving room on the ground floor, together with elevator access in the lobby. The main driveway is 6.4 meters wide for the development, and it's at the southeast corner of the subject site and will connect to a proposed internal subdivision street to the east. That's Street C, and there's to be no turning movement restrictions for that entrance. A secondary but 9-meter entrance is proposed onto Mapleview Drive, and it's anticipated that the turning movements to Mapleview Drive will in fact be restricted to right in and right out. As part of the site plan, there's 158 parking spaces, of which 6 are barrier-free. And the parking spaces proposed include 13 spaces for the commercial uses and 145 for the residential. In terms of the development statistics, these are addressed on the tables in the site plan, and I'm not going to go through those in detail. I will say, though, that the proposed development generally complies with the RM3 zone that is proposed, subject to 5 exceptions that will be addressed later in my presentation. This is the landscape concept, and it illustrates coniferous and deciduous plantings throughout the site, notably in the front, side, and rear yards. The purpose of the pathway is shown, the multi-purpose pathway is shown within the Mapleview Drive right-of-way, with the connection provided to the subject site and through to Street C. And Street C would be in this location here. I think I'm off the screen there. And the landscape area is to be provided within the front yard, and private patio areas are to be provided to the loft units on the west side of the building. Trees are also to be planted in the islands that are at the ends of the parking space row. And I would note as well that the tree plantings proposed on the landscape plan concept meet the minimum density for planting that's been established by the city of Barrie. This slide illustrates building renderings from the 4 sides of the building. The upper rendering illustrates the building viewed from Mapleview Drive, and as you can see, the 2-story loft units project in the front of the apartment building. The second rendering illustrates the building viewed from the rear lot line, and as you can see, the second floor of the building projects above the parking spaces at ground level. The third rendering illustrates the commercial side of the building viewed from the easterly side lot line, and it also shows the 9-meter driveway that would be restricted to right in and right out. And the fourth rendering illustrates the building viewed from the west side lot line. And as you can see, the loft units once again project in front of the apartment building. And private patios for the lofts are shown as well as balconies for the apartments for floors 3 through 6. In terms of the planning policy framework, the planning applications must be consistent with the provincial policy statement and conform to the growth plan. Planning applications for site plan, plans of subdivision and rezoning must conform with the City of Barrie official plan. And this mixed use development, in our opinion, as planners, is consistent with the PPS and conforms with the growth plan and the City of Barrie official plan. This slide is Schedule 9C, land use of the Hewitt secondary plan, and the subject property is identified on that schedule. Excuse me. Now, the subject property is designated as residential defined policy area 9.5.7.5 on Schedule 9C. And Mapleview Drive at this location is classified as an arterial road. Section 9.5.7.2 permitted uses, buildings and structures for residential areas permits high density residential uses to a maximum of 100 units per hectare and convenience commercial uses. There are certain other uses that are also permitted, but I'm just going to pass on those because our project proposal doesn't involve that use. Section 9.5.7.5 define policy area for 947 Mapleview Drive. States that the permitted usage shall also include retail, service, commercial, and office uses. And in this case, the retail use proposed is permitted on the ground floor of a high-density residential building, provided the use does not exceed 60% of the ground floor area. Now, this proposal involves high-density residential use and provides 293 square meters of ground floor area for convenience commercial. And the 13.9% is obviously much lower than the maximum of 60% that's allowed. And the proposal conforms in all respects to the official plan, in our opinion. This is the proposed Schedule A to the zoning bylaw amendment for the subject site. And I would note that it excludes the lands to be acquired from to the east from Mapleview South Innisfil Limited. And that's excludes those lands because they're being dealt with in a zoning bylaw application that's going through the review process at the city right now. The subject property currently is zoned rural residential RR by the Town of Innisfil zoning bylaw. And this zoning coverage was inherited by the city as part of the boundary adjustment in the annex land. A residential neighborhood multiple 3 special RM3 SPXX zone is proposed by Mapleview Friday Corporation for the subject site, and a residential neighborhood 5 special R5 SP-XX zone, which is proposed for the Mapleview South Innisfil Limited on lands that are proposed to be conveyed to Mapleview Friday Corporation for the enhanced development site. Now, there are several special provisions that we're seeking for exceptions to the zoning bylaw. 2 of those exceptions are intended to clarify the application of the zoning bylaw. The first being, this is an irregular shaped corner lot. And the first provision would be designed to clarify that the front lot line would be the lot line opposite Mapleview Drive, and the lot frontage for the development would be measured 7 meters back from the front lot line, and the front yard setback would be applicable to the setback from Mapleview Drive. So one of the exceptions is to clarify the application of the bylaw in this instance. The second exception, which would be the 5th one, is once again to clarify the application of the zoning bylaw, because we have 2 zones that are proposed for the subject property. One that Mapleview Friday Corporation is proposing, which is the RM3 SP-XX. The other, which is being dealt with in a separate application by Mapleview Friday South, Mapleview South Innisfil Limited, is the R5 SPXX zone. And because those 2 zones are going to apply to the development site, we're adding a special provision that clarifies that the lands that are zoned in the R5 category can be used to calculate the RM3 SPXX zone provisions. Now, there are a couple of exceptions that aren't for interpretation purposes. The front yard setback we're proposing that the minimum would be 0 meters versus 3 meters. Now, I wouldn't note for planning committee that the commercial building is on the design is shown to be 2.6 meters from the front lot line, and the residential component is shown to be 2.4 meters. The reason for the proposal that it be 0 meters is just to give some flexibility in the siting of the building. The landscape buffer strip width minimum for in the interior side yard and rear yards is to be reduced from 3 meters to 2.6 meters. And that's primarily due to the shallow depth of the property from front to back. And the 2.6 meters is considered to be workable in terms of landscape plantings, and that within those areas in the interior side and rear yards. And the parking lot coverage is being, we're proposing it be increased from 40% of the lot to 45.1% of the lot. And this is being done without a reduction to the minimum landscaped open space of 25% on the property. In terms of the summary and conclusions, in our opinion as planners, the rezoning is consistent with the PPS and conforms to the growth plan. The rezoning conforms to the City of Barrie official plan, and the rezoning is appropriate and will contribute to the optimal and best use of land, and in our opinion also represents good planning. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, well, thank you for the fulsome presentation, Mr. Goodread. I will now call upon Michelle Banfield, Director of Development Services, to provide an update on the status of the application.
Thank you again for the introduction, Deputy Mayor Ward. So at this point, this application is under the technical review that is by planning staff, as well as the city's technical review team and external agencies such as the Conservation Authority. So right now, the planning matters that we're looking at are conformity with the secondary plan, compatibility with the surrounding land uses as it relates to any potential shadowing, stepping provisions, building setbacks, landscape buffers, fencing, really site plan related issues, as well as the ability to service the site, grading, stormwater management, all those sorts of things in particular as it relates to the master plans in the secondary plan area. Ensuring that the built form, the site layout, the overall design contribute to a great streetscape along Mapleview Drive East. Optimizing any of the existing and planned infrastructure in the area, just ensuring connectivity between the subject lands and any of the existing and planned developments in the area, in particular as it relates to vehicular traffic and pedestrian circulation. Always we take a look at any private and shared vegetation, preserving and enhancing as much as we can, any sort of impacts the development may have on traffic operations. And then, as I said, just other things that relate to things that are a little bit more site plan related, amenity spaces, landscaping, snow storage, all those sorts of things. Planning staff are targeting a late 2022 or early 2023 return to planning committee. Everything that we either hear this evening or through the technical review process will be tabulated and responded to in the public meeting or the public report that comes back to planning committee. All of the submission materials and key dates with this application are available for viewing online on the city's proposed development webpage. That's under this is under Ward 10. And I know that this meeting and the last meeting didn't have a lot of public participation, but really this is just one opportunity, the public meeting. There's still the opportunity to either write into city staff. The file manager on this file is Andrew Gamero. You can email him, you can call him, you can still write into the city, even if you're not here this evening or if we don't hear from people this evening. And every comment we get right up until the time council considers the application or the planning report report would be responded to. So thank you very much for your attention, and that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Just a reminder that if anybody wants to speak tonight, they can email cityclerks@barrie.ca or call 705-797-5353. I could ask staff whether anybody is registered to speak at the meeting.
No, Deputy Mayor Ward, there are no speakers in queue.
Okay. Then if anyone has, as was just mentioned by the city's planner, if anybody has any further written comments, you are asked to submit them to Andrew Gamero, planner of the Development Services Department at andrew.gamero, G-A-M-E-I-R-O @barrie.ca for either of the matters tonight. He's the planner. We have no presentations by staff officers or agents of the corporation. We have no deferred business. And we are now at inquiries. Anybody has any inquiries of planning staff? See none. We're adjourned. Do I need a motion to adjourn? Nope, we're adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, staff.
Thanks. Good night.